Hello FIGGIE fiends and collectors, this is me, Daniel East 1000, back again with another top 15 Star Wars the original trilogy characters that need to be included in the Black Series line of figures. Of course, for this list we'll be focusing purely on original trilogy characters, none of the stuff that happens in between or expanded universe, purely just the films themselves. With that being said, the original trilogy has had the most Black Series figures made for them, and naturally because of that, more uniquer, obscure characters could probably start to be sprinkled throughout the line. Your list obviously will probably vary and differentiate from mine, so be sure to let me know what you guys think in the comments below and I'll be sure to check it out. So let's get into my picks. At number 15, C-3PO and R2-D2, Jabba's Palace.
R2, what are you doing here?
I've been a tiny bit cheeky with this one, as it's technically two characters, although they kind of come both hand in hand, and I think they could easily pack these as a two-pack. They're so far down on my list as well, because they're figures that we've received numerous times. C-3PO in particular, of whom I'm pretty sure we've had at least 5 releases for. But both these figures would need additional tooling and work to make them more unique, particularly as these are more scene specific. So in the Jabba's Palace scene, C-3PO obviously has the fallen out eye. They could include a Salacious Crumb on him because they have that sculpt. We've seen that Hasbro aren't shy from taking exclusives and implementing them on their own. Furthermore, R2-D2, it's just a case of making a drinks tray for him and then maybe an additional bit of sculpting and moulding for the little, drinks serving arm comes out of his head. A couple of removable beverage glasses would also be a must as well. It's not a big ask, particularly if you were going to do these as a 2-pack. You can't have one without the other. That's why they're at number 15. At number 14, Wilro Hood. So this guy is a very blink and you'll miss it sort of character, hence why I put him again so low down on my list. But he is a fan favourite, as evident by the running of Wilro Hood at many celebration conventions. For those of you who don't know, Wilro Hood is also known as the ice cream maker guy because he carries around a prop that is effectively an ice cream maker. It's not one that Hasbro needs to rush out straight away to do, but one that I would appreciate if they did do at some point. At number 13, Gurinden. I'm hoping I pronounced that right. Yeah, the sneaky Imperial spy. It's quite a throwaway character, but I always found him quite interesting, just very mysterious, and character design's quite interesting as well, and we're cool to see on a shelf. This also feeds into my love of weird and unique alien characters, so that definitely checks. At number 12, General McQuarrie. So at first glance, for some people who might not be as initiated, we'll probably think that's a background character and what's so special about this guy? Well, if you didn't know, General McQuarrie is played by Ralph McQuarrie, who behind the scenes of the films themselves, at least in terms of the original trilogy, came up with pretty much all of the concept art for the original trilogy Star Wars films. He was the one that pretty much pre-visualised this insane galaxy. The visual architect, and quite nicely he does feature a cameo in Empire Strikes Back as a rebel general. It's a sort of blink and you'll miss it thing again, but it's one of those that when you see it, it's kind of like, that's Ralph McQuarrie. We got a General McQuarrie in 334 inch. I'd love to see it in 6 inch, and it was understandable why they wouldn't do it this year, but slightly disappointed that they didn't include a General McQuarrie for the 40th anniversary of Empire Strikes Back. But that's fine, Hasbro, that's fine. If you could at some point do a Black Series General McQuarrie, I'd love that. And I think that would be a great, great homage to one of the main key players in bringing these films to life. If you do it as a standard release or as an exclusive, I'm all yours. I'll take whatever. At number 11, Bib Fortuna. We've got Jabba. I haven't, but one day maybe. Surely Hasbro will re-release it. Some of us have got Gamorrean Guard, if they could actually find one. I didn't. I think it's time we got Bib Fortuna. Jabba's trusty advisor would be a really, really interesting figure to see. And I think it'd have quite a presence on anyone's FIGGIE shelf and would look great displayed with Jabba the Hutt and all your other, well, there's not really many other ones yet, but he'd be a great starting point for more Jabba's Palace Denizens. And that's why Bib Fortuna makes it in this list. At number 10, Gonk Droid. This one's an obvious choice, to be honest. The line is sorely lacking droids, and Hasbro does seem to have a lot of lack of faith in droids, which is quite unfortunate really, because I think the droids for me are always like an interesting feature, and the figures of droids are always fun. So for me, Gonk Droid, just because of how memeable he is. I need me my slow boy. I do, although there are other figures in this list that I want a bit more. At number 9, Death Star Gunner. We've already got Standard Stormtrooper, we've got Snow Trooper, we've got Sand Trooper, or the various versions of Sand Troopers, Speeder Bike Pilot, and now aside from just the Space Trooper, of which you very barely see in the film, Death Star Gunner is the one that has slightly more screen time than that one. So that's kind of my justification as to why I'd want to see that. I love me some Imperial boys, and this would certainly add to the ranks of those. At number 8, 9 Num. The stack of Pringle-faced alien I'd love to see, because he's an endearing boy. That little laugh, that little chuckle he gives to Lando, even in the face of danger. I need me a 9 Num. Starting to now border on figures that I kind of like maybe do, but yeah, really push to start doing these now, because he's a relatively iconic character and would go with a figure that I've got a little bit later in this list incredibly well. That's why it makes it at number 8. At number 7, Ugnaught. So now that some of us have had the chance to get a carbon freezing block Han Solo, not only that, the other figures that would probably go with a carbon freezing chamber scene, some Ugnaughts certainly wouldn't go amiss, particularly if they came with some little consoles and a few other little accessories like the little lunch boxes. That'd be cool, that'd be rather cool. And it'd be nice if you could see Hasbro release 2 of those in a pack. I doubt it, because they're very stingy and they've done it in the past with Jawas where they just release them individually. But nonetheless, if the articulation was there, the detailing and whatnot, I'd buy a couple of these, because you can't just really have one, you've got to have a group of them. At number 6, Hammerhead. So, as we've got further into this list, you've probably noticed, well, there's not that many Cantina aliens. And certainly I could probably do a list dedicated to Cantina patrons and Jabba's Palace patrons that Hasbro could make. So for this, just so it doesn't become overly dominated by characters like that, I've pretty much set myself as to the one sort of alien in kind of like specific scenes that would be a way to get the ball rolling, as I've kind of sort of said earlier. I think Hammerhead would be a perfect one. I could have maybe gone for Walrus Man, then the only problem with that is you've got to have Walrus Man and Dr. Everson, but Hammerhead's one of those that always stays in my mind, and I think he's quite an iconic character both on screen and the original vintage Kenner figure. At number 5, Lando Calrissian.
Here goes nothing.
And like I said with 9 Num, this figure would accompany that one perfectly. If they could do a 2-pack, that would be fantastic. That would be perfect. I doubt they would, because it's 2 new figures and Hasbro like to take, you know, reuse figures and things like that in their 2-packs for the most part. Nonetheless, a Lando Calrissian from Return of the Jedi would be absolutely brilliant. I had a bit of trouble deciding which Lando I'd want more, because there is another Lando that Hasbro still need to make. Although this one appears for a little longer, compared at least to the end scene Lando in Empire Strikes Back, where for some unknown reason, I think it was a bit of a dig to Harrison Ford to say, come back and do Return of the Jedi, Lando's wearing Han Solo's clothes from A New Hope. Pretty weird, and Lando in those digs doesn't really have that much screen time, but again, that's like an honourable mention, I guess. I'd love to see that at some point. But yeah, Lando for Return of the Jedi in his general sort of gear, that'll be sweet to see, and is one that is sort of needed. It's like the second iconic look. At number 4, Lobot. So you can't have Lando on his own, you've got to have his trusty sidekick, Lobot. Now we've already got Lando in his Bespin gear, so it makes complete sense as to why we should get Lobot. Again, he's not really a main character, but he does actually do something. I mean, it's a fairly big thing that he does, which is rescuing our heroes. So that's why I think he's more than worthy of having a number 4 spot in this list. At number 3, Big Starklighter.
All wings report in. Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by.
There are plenty of Rebel pilots that Hasbro could do. I'm sorry, Porkins, you're not in this list. You got snubbed by this character, Big Starklighter. Luke's best friend in A New Hope that, unfortunately, spoiler alert, gets gunned down. I'd really like to see a Biggs. I'm pretty sure Hasbro will make it at some point. We already have an X-Wing pilot sculpt for him. It's just really a case of them doing a hyperreal face head sculpt and a repainted helmet. Although it must be said, his helmet is a little more intricate than some other Rebel pilots that you see in terms of the paint application. And if they did do a Biggs, they can reuse that head sculpt for a deleted scene Biggs, of which would be pretty damn cool if they did that one at a later point. But the X-Wing pilot Biggs is the one that we really need most, but bear that one in mind, Hasbro, because that would be a cool inclusion in the line. At number 2, Dark Spirit. The Dagobah vision sequence that Luke has when he's fighting Vader on Dagobah, like slices the helmet off and the helmet rolls on the floor, and then poof, you've got the big face reveal of Luke being behind the Vader mask. I'd love to see that. I'd really love to see a Darth Vader with like weird sort of mystical paint apps and maybe a bit of grubby paint apps there as well, and just like a piece of the mask that you can pull off. They've done it in Vintage Collection or Black Series 334-inch before. Again, with the hyperreal face tech of a Luke behind that. That'll be super awesome, and particularly this year with the 40th anniversary. And I was kind of expecting them to do it this year just because we have got Luke and Yoda Dagobah training, the R2. Slightly disappointed that they didn't do this one this year, but hopefully one day they do. This would be super, super cool. It's another Vader at the end of the day, but it's one with that much of a twist that would make it a bit more interesting. And when people see it on your shelf, they're like, that's pretty cool. That's something a little bit different. I'd really like to see a Dark Spirit Darth Vader. At number 1, Wicket.
That's right.
This one is such an obvious choice, and I'm sure Hasbro are going to do it someday, maybe soon. I'm hoping soon rather than later. It's odd that we've had Tebow and we're getting another Ewok in the form of that San Diego Comic-Con exclusive figure set, but we've not had Wicket yet. And something that I'd really love to see if they do a Wicket is if they include a bunch of interchangeable accessories, particularly like the Vintage Collection one, as a homage to the Ewoks cartoon. So if they include the brown headscarf, that'll be great. But then if they included a different one with the green paint apps as a reference to how he appears in Ewoks, Hasbro, you've got me over a barrel. If they include that simple little accessory, it'd be a nice tip of the hat. Wicket the Ewok is one that we really need, and I'm pretty sure was a big surprise as to why we haven't got him sooner. That's why Wicket's at number 1 in this list. because he's a figure that feels like should have been made at this point. So that's my top 15 Star Wars the original trilogy characters that I think should be made at some point in the Black Series 6-inch line of figures. Can you think of any that I didn't mention in this video? What would your ones be? Let me know in the comments below. And if you haven't seen it already, you're looking for something to watch, I've done my top 15 prequel character choices, of which you can see somewhere up there. I always get confused where that might be. Anyways, let me know in the comments below in regards to this one, as to what your picks would be for original trilogy characters that appear in the films as figures. And in the meantime, be sure to check out some new videos down there, or old, if you haven't seen them already. And, like it says up there, this is me, Daniel East 1000, signing out, and thank you very much for watching.